All right, welcome back to the Eoin McKiernan Library Story Hour. I've missed a couple days because sometimes it's just hard to get the space and the quiet. So today is Whuppity Stoorie. This is a classic tale which you might recognize, retold by John Warren Stewig, illustrated by Preston McDaniels, and it is a holiday house book. Actually, I'll show you this very first picture. It's a lovely title page. So see if you recognize this story. Listen closely, my bairns, for a story about the good wife of Kitty Rumpet. Come sit ye down and listen well, while I tell you how the good wife bested one of the fairy folk. Sorry. There she is. Now, the good man of Kittlerumpet was a wandering sort of body, and he went to the fair one day, and not only never came home, but never more was heard of. When the good man of Kittlerumpet was gone, the good wife was left ill provided for. Little money had she, and a wee bairn, Robert, to look after besides. Everybody was sorry for her, but nobody helped her, which was a common case. However, the good wife had a sow, and that was her only consolation, for the sow was soon to farrow, and she hoped for a good litter of wee piglets. One day, the wife went to the sty to fill the sow's trough. And what did she find but the sow lying on her back, grunting and groaning, flailing her trotters, ready to leave this world for the next. This was a new blow to the good wife's heart, so she sat down beside the pen with the bairn on her knee and wept sorrier than she ever did for the loss of her good man. The cottage was built on a brae with a fir forest behind it. When the good wife was wiping her eyes, she chanced to look down the hill, and what did she see but an old woman coming slowly up the road? She was dressed in green, with a short white apron and a black velvet hood, and a steeple-crowned beaver hat on her head. She had a walking staff as long as herself in her hand, the sort of staff that old men and old women helped themselves with in times long gone. When the good wife saw the green gentlewoman near her, she rose and made a curtsy. "Madam," quoth she, "I'm one of the most misfortunate women alive." "I dinna wish to hear old news and old gossip, good wife," responded the woman. "I know ye've lost your good man. The fingers o' hard times pinch us all now and again. I know your sow's sorry state. Now, what would you give me if I cure her?" "Anything your ladyship likes," replied the witless woman, never guessing what she had to deal with. "Let's seal the bargain by wetting our thumbs," said the lady in green. So, thumbs were wet, and into the sty Madam marched, her skirts swirling like a spring wind over the peat bog. She scowled long at the sow, and then began to mutter to herself what the good wife couldn't well understand, but she told me it sounded like pitter-patter, holy water. Then she took out of her pouch a wee bottle with something like oil in it and rubbed the sow above the snoot, behind the ears, and on the tip of the tail. "Get up, beast," she commanded. No sooner said than done. Up bangs the sow with a grunt, and away to the trough for her slops. The good wife of Kittlerumpet was joyful now, and would have kissed the very hem of the green madam's gown tail, but the madam wouldn't let her. I'm not so fond of fine manners, she said, but now that I have righted your sick beast, let us end our bargain. You'll not find me an unreasonable, greedy body. I always like to do a good turn for a small reward. All I ask, and will have, is baby Robert on your bosom. The good wife of Kittlerumpet knew now who she was facing, and gave a scream like a stuck pig. The green woman was a fairy, no doubt, so she prays and weeps and begs and scolds, but nothing would do any good. Spare me your din, says the fairy, screaming as if I were deaf as a doornail. But this I'll let you know. I cannot, by the law we live under, take your bairn until the 3rd day after this, and not then, if you can tell me my right name. So Madam swirls her skirts round behind the swine sty, and the good wife falls down in a faint behind the horse trough. The good wife of Kittlerumpet could sleep none that night for weeping, and all the next day the same, cuddling Robert till she near squeezed his breath out. But the 2nd day she thinks of taking a walk in the wood I told you of to ease her mind. So with the bairn in her arms she set out. She went in far among the trees where there was an old quarry hole grown over with weeds, and a bonny spring well in the middle of it. Before she came very nigh, she heard the whirring of a spinning wheel and a voice lifting a song. So the wife crept quietly among the bushes and peeped over the brow of the quarry, and what did she see but the green fairy striving at her wheel and singing loud enough to wake the dead. Little knows our good dame at home that Whuppity Stoorie is my name. Pictures are great. Aha, thought the wife. I've gotten the way to outwit the madam at last. So she went home far lighter than she came out, as ye may guess, laughing like a madcap with the thought of besting the old green fairy. Ye must know now, bairns, that this good wife was a jovial woman, and aye merry when her heart wasn't sorely overladen, so she thinks to have some sport with the fairy. At the appointed time, she puts the bairn behind the pig pen and sits down on it herself. Then she pulls her cap over her left ear, crooks her mouth on the side as if she were weeping, and a filthy face she made, you may be sure. She hadn't long to wait, for up the hill mounts the green fairy, neither lame nor lazy. Long before she got near the pig pen, she cries out, "Good wife of Kittlerumpet, ye well know what I came for. Stand and deliver." The wife pretends to weep sorrier than before, and wrings her hands and falls on her knees, crying, "Oh, sweet madam mistress, spare my only bairn, and take the weary sow." "The devil take the sow for my share," quoth the fairy. "I come not here for swine's flesh. Don't be perverse, Hizzy, but give me the child instantly." "Oh, dear lady mine," replied the weeping goodwife, "forbear my poor bairn and take myself." "The devil's in thee, self-willed woman," said the fairy, looking like storm clouds gathering over the moor. "I'll say you're clean demented. Who in all the earthly world with half an eye in their head would ever meddle with the likes of thee?" Poor Robert. Well, I know this made the good wife at Kittlerumpet bristle, for though she had 2 bleary eyes and a long red nose besides, she thought herself as bonny as the best of the ladies who dance at the fair. So she bangs off her knees, sets up her cap, and with her 2 hands folded afore her, she makes a curtsy down to the ground. "Dear lady," she says, "you promised I could guess your name to repay my debt. Do I guess your name to be Esmeralda?" The green woman rocked back on her heels and laughed at the futile guess. "Well, if that's not right, perhaps it's Fernandora," asked the good wife. Once again the magical fairy laughed, rather rudely, at the guess. "I troth, fair madam," quoth the good wife, "I might have had the wit to know that the likes of me is not fit to tie the shoestring of the high and mighty Princess Whuppity Stoorie." And a fluff of gunpowder had come out of the ground. It couldn't have caused the fairy to leap higher than she did. Then down she came again. Down on her shoe heels and whirling around, she ran down the hill, screeching for rage, like an owl chasing with the witches. The good wife of Kittlerumpet laughed till she was like to cry. Then she took up Robert and went into her house, singing the entire way. "A good day's work, my bonny wee tyke, you're ready for your feedin'. Whuppity Stoorie has run away, and happiness we're seeking." So, now, bairns, you know what happens to those who get themselves crosswise with one of the fairies, who always have mischief in mind when they help us humans. Stay shy of them and solve your own problems. You get to see all the piglets at the end. That is it. Stay tuned for our next story, hopefully tomorrow.